the war goals, as it were. But the absolute key question is what happens to Russia domestically. I don't think there's any immediate chance of a coup or regime change. What has been happening, of course, is the intensification of Fortress Russia, the trial of those members of Memorial International and Memorial Historical Association continues, domestic repression, but on the economic level, yep, some sort of central bank of Russia has been acting relatively adroitly to move forward. So basically, what I'm now suggesting.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob. Here I am, wearing my oracle goggles of Hisu reality. But today is Earth Day, April 21st, I guess. And back in the early 70s, I think it might be the 50th anniversary, so it might have been 72, but I was with a guy, Sam Lovejoy, right? And what Sam did, he was really the godfather of Earth Day because they were going to build a nuclear power plant in Vermont, and they didn't need one there. And so Sam was a smart boy. He did all his homework, and so the NRC back in the day made the utility company put a big tower up and get all the kind of like a year's worth of weather, which way the wind blows, how hard, how humid, blah, 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 right? And so there's this big in this valley, beautiful, beautiful valley where they're going to build Vermont Yankee, and right next to a beautiful, beautiful river. And Sam basically, and there was a little town not too far at the end of that valley, and Sam went there with some bolt cutters, and it was a 200-foot tower, like radio tower. And he cut down a few bing, 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 bing support cables, and then the whole thing, it started to rickety, rickety, rickety. He did the last one. He got in his car, drove back about a quarter mile, and the whole thing. And there used to be a gigantic white strobe on top of this, and it would just go bang. And every time it would light up the whole valley like it was a nuclear explosion. Bang. Like every 20 seconds. Bang. Bang. And if you were close to it, you could hear that little tube up there going bang, right? So no, because it was at a place that if an airplane was flying through that valley and it didn't have a big bright light on it at night, and during the thing, flashed bright enough to see during the day, but it was painted white and red, you'd really have to try hard to miss it. Anyway, the whole tower came down, and it made such a racket coming down that the little town at the end of the valley definitely heard it, and that flashing light stopped flashing. So in an hour or so, the state troopers and a couple of the Barney Fifes showed up, and Sam was waiting for him. They all know who he was. He had already talked about this a lot. He had gone to, the community meetings, the city, town, the county, and said, we can't do this. And the utilities were paying everyone off. So, of course, it was going to be done. So he let the tower smash down. He didn't run away. He let himself get arrested, and he wanted to go to court. And he went to court, and he everything was going to be put in the court record. So he just put all of the record of the Manhattan Project, nuclear weapons, NRC, there's this thing called what's it called? The only reason why we have commercial nuclear power is because the federal government passed a law stating that the utilities could make $16 for every dollar that they didn't have to spend their own money. They could spend the ratepayers' money to build a nuclear power plant. And if it ever had an devastating accident, the utility didn't have to pay anything. They were totally négligé, not responsible for the accident. And The utility company itself could only be sued $50 million, right? When like in the worst case, accident cost billions of dollars, right? What's it called? Oh, it's escaping me, but it's a congressional law that basically guarantees ridiculous profits for nuclear power and no responsibility, right? Pretty much for everything, all extraction industries, oil, coal, uranium, every mineral, they have all, the railroads, they're not held responsible. Nobody's held responsible. Utility companies, Mr. Rothschild, who owns basically 90%, if not more, of all the utilities in the United States and the rest of the world, he's not responsible. All these major fires, PCG has not paid anything out on them. And the more this stuff goes down, and when you see where these catastrophes happen, poor people's neighborhoods, indigenous people's neighborhoods, it's never in the rich white guy's neighborhood, right? So here it is, 1972. I'm in Harvard Square, and it's Sam Lovejoy on one side of me, and what was one of Ralph Nader's lawyers, who was really, the guy had cojones because he wasn't just a lawyer, he was always on the line, right? Whatever kind of thing we were doing, he was on the line. Anyway, so you see this war in Ukraine, and I see it as a land grab slash, and Russia isn't getting anything out of this really. And my question is: Putin just reading the script of Mr. Blobaloney, or is he, been so, wired that someone just flipped a switch? Is he reading the script or flipped a switch? Because that's the only way anybody. I mean, this makes no sense to go into Ukraine the way it's going in, right? But what's going to happen is going to cost an unbelievable famine where, I mean, billion people are going to die of starvation in the next year because of the way the weather has been the last 10 years and the way the earth has been so destroyed and the wars that have disrupted all of the other mechanisms of delivery and food. So, why did we just leave Afghanistan after 20 years? Just leave. Like basically when we left Bagram Air Force Base, we told nobody. We took all the stuff we wanted. We put them on C-17s and flew out of there one night, turned off the lights, didn't even lock the door. The Taliban didn't even know we weren't there for at least 3 or 4 days. And if we wanted to get everybody out, no muss, no fuss, easy peasy, we would have kept Bagram and we would have kept the 2,500, soldiers there, and we would have kept the 20 A-10s there, and we would have, over 6, 7 months, we would have taken everyone out, very nice, all the Afghanis, all the Europeans, all the NGOs, everybody, and left it, and then let the Taliban have it, right? We could have done that. That we were negotiating. I mean, that's how Trumpy was negotiating it. But JoJo just kind of pulled right out, and left it total chaos because that, when you do that, you're looking at that and not this. And so the chaos in Ukraine, we're looking at that. We're not looking at what's going on. And Mr. Baloney he has to take down the United States, has to take down the EU, the Russia, China, and other entities, and they will, right? And so it's been going on now since basically Spanish American War, right? Now their little plan of ending up where they wanted to be was 2050, but for some reason they are speeding things up, so they're doing it a little quicker than they should, and so they're doing things so things are being made a little more obvious. But we still have the you know um, 3 card Monte. Oh, look over here while we're doing this over there. So um, oil companies making more money than they ever have, right? And there's more oil all over the place than there ever has been, and people getting more money for it, right? And we were, destroyed the lines of distribution and manufacturing with COVID-19 in 2020 and 2021 and the beginning of 2022. And now it's always in our hip pocket if we need to use it. We need to pull that trigger. And so the only thing, it's pretty obvious that everyone's so distracted, so siloed, so prejudiced in their belief. They have no open mind. They can't see anything. And again, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. That's me, your griot to tell you a story. And so I, wanted to say thank you for um, the people who always send me a few pennies, and I have to really thank them because they don't have any money. But they, I always, after towards the end of the month, they have sent me somewhere between 30 and, you know, $50, right? The four of them. And that's all they can send, and that's great. And that's usually just what skins me, right? But a lot of you who have, because a number of you have dumped a nice chunk in there, half that and send me that every month. That would be great. If I could get $200 to $300 out of this a month, I would be. I wouldn't have to worry. I wouldn't have to, And I don't worry. I don't care to worry. Um, yeah, I know enough to see what's happening. I mean, there's going to be a nuclear exchange because Mr. Globaloni wants it. If you go to Georgia Stones, go see what the Georgia Stones say. They want the not planetary, but Terrian population to go down to a half a billion people on Earth, right? And they are willing to let it be, turned into a trash heap. And that's what the movie. Go see Zardos. That's what it's about, right? And that's where and that's why that movie was made. It was quite interesting. Mr. James Bond, the first one, Sean Conway, he was in all these movies, and Man Who Would Be King, Zardos, Nothing Is True, or Nothing, It's Not the Way It Is, Time Bandits. These are all movies that are quite interesting because they're quite truthful in telling kind of what's going on, right? So I have a sense that we're either going to go to Zardo's motif or the childhood ends motif, right? And it's going to be evidently clear by 4th of July this year, right? Or between 4th of July and Halloween, let's say. And it should be quite interesting because what we're going to see is a severe unable to feed the human race. The people in the rich country, United States, Canada, Australia, EU, they will be able to feed their people, and a chunk of China will. But China, what I really feel wants to have happen in this year, just the way they are dealing with the COVID in their biggest city, is they want all of the old people to die this year, right? And that's what they're going to help precipitate because they painted themselves into a corner with the one child thing because the old people just got older and right now 60% of their population is over 65. About 20% of their population are the ones who are working in the factories who are being productive, and within 5 years that'll go down to 12% and the rest will be old people. So if you rev up the pandemic so it kills the people most vulnerable, it's a win-win for China, right? But it will cause such cultural and social disruption that it might be the end of China, right? And so Mr. Globaloni is down either way. Because the infrastructure to control the world will have been created in China, right? And in Mr. Globaloni's image and likeness, right? So, and that's where they will, after they, China I mean, they have cities that no one's lived in yet, for like a couple of million. So they're basically going to wipe out their population and then move in that, you know, 300 million rich folk, upper middle management of the world. See, we're past nation states. We are in a transnational unipolar hegemony, right? And we're in it. I mean, that was what World War One and World War Two were about, right? And that's why the communist revolution was brought up, because who invented it? Marx, and Engels. Where were they? They were in London when they wrote that. Who paid their bills? Mr. Rothschild. Communism is the loyal opposition. So here it is, Earth Day. And back 50 years ago, 1972, I had Sam on one side and this other amazing lawyer, Ralph Nader, a younger version of Ralph Nader. And he could have been a zillionaire, but he didn't. He was really amazing. And so for a good 10 years, those guys did a lot of fun things, out of bread and puppets, right? An environmental circus, right? And a performance art. And that's the whole thing. The tool that is needed to heal the wounds is art, right? And art is technology is a version of art, right? And so I'm, speaking out to Elon Musk and Jeffy Bezos, who are and Mr. Facebook and Bill. I don't know if Bill is, beyond saving, but all of those folk, they were, poster children. They were brought up to be exactly what they are, right? They are mind controlled, automatons, but they're still who they are is still in there, right? And I have a feeling that they can step up. They can wake up. They got so much money they could seriously fix. And the problems aren't technological. So first of all, steel, right? The most polluting substance, right? And to make steel, you need coke. It comes out of coal, right? All of that pig iron and coke come from Russia and the Ukraine, like 80%. I mean, there are other places that it comes from, but that's the largest part of it. And so, but there's this other technology called green hydrogen, where instead of using coal, you use hydrogen, but you can make from water. Solar power and water gives you hydrogen and oxygen. Bessemer converter, really and really good still, no impurities. So, and that is a technology that's here, that's now, but they don't want to use it because they already got this technology that's already producing, and they're letting it be produced in Russia and in Ukraine. So now, and that place that's getting obliterated is Steel Town, right? And they are obliterating. So it's pretty obvious to me someone wants to give an opportunity to make a hard right turn into the Green New Deal, right? That they will own, right? And they will control. And that's okay. And they will, in that interim, the wars will just get stickier and stickier. And I have basically, Vlad has already said, you push me too far, I'm going to attack Ukraine. You push me too far, I'm going to attack Ukraine. Not just the Donbass, but Ukraine. You didn't say, I'm just going to Donbass. No, Ukraine. I'm going to protect all the Russian-speaking people. Well, that's like 98% of people in Ukraine. He killed most of them. He's like killing them a lot. He's killing all those Russian people that he's supposed to be going in there to protect. So, maybe 40% of Ukraine felt lean towards Russia, but not anymore. I mean, everything he's done has, in optic sense, has been the worst, right? And he doesn't care about his own people. Whatever we do to them, it doesn't really have an effect, because it's like Russia has been an insulated entity forever, since the revolution. Fish, and covering the mic. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now? Well, that was only 19 minutes of talking. Can you hear me now? I'm gonna have to get one of those little things I can hang in my head. I mean, my head already looks weird enough with this thing on it. So can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Hey, can you hear me? Hello, 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 hello. Much better. Okay. So and all of this has been obvious since at least the Civil War, because what happened in the United States in the Civil War is exactly what's happening in Russia and the Ukraine. It's a form of civil war, and it's not as cut and dry, but it's being done by the same people, the Rothschild, and the Rothschilds aren't the folk; they are just the poster boys, right? The dark hand, is it, right? And who's the dark hand? My sense it's a dimensional reptilian, right? Who's been here only probably you know since Babylon, and there were other demigods here. Just look at all the religious and whatever motifs and other cultural motifs. It's kind of right there. So anyway, what else? Yes. So the only way we can deal with this is that in our own little neighborhoods, some people, we need to start at this. Did you talk to your congressman? Come on, we had the best. There, and those people who constantly, you need to get in. Well, I am involved. I'm doing this show, and I spent the last, 60 years organizing, gigantic movements and rallies and you name it. And I so it did nothing, I mean, it did something, but, the only way that I've ever seen any real change is from the bottom up. And it doesn't start with public radio. I mean, they're already, anything that's the media is already owned. And that's why, why is Moron Boy, Mr. Elon, why did he buy whatever percent of Twitter? Nobody, I mean, except Twitter's there for geeks, and politicos, and it's obvious he wants to shake the tree some more, you know. And so you got to look where Elon came from, South Africa. He is a bore, on every level. But inside there, I see a potential to do so. He wants to do something. And so he's still just staying in the guardrails of what he's been set upon. But he's got the money and the technology, and meaning if he wanted to take over steel and make green steel, right there, if he did that, we would chunk off about 30% of the carbon that we say we need to take off by the end of this decade, right? Right there. And he could get it done by 2025. Take a few years off of Mars because we're already on Mars. We don't have to go. So he just wants to make it affordable for the upper middle millionaires to, instead of going to Florida, they'll go to Mars, right? So he could do a lot of things. The other thing is, once Nikola Tesla developed a wireless transmission of electricity using a zero-point state as field, meaning you didn't need to burn any coal, and didn't need to have a big dam, didn't need to have anything. He could just tap the current flow from that space, the void, the what they call the ether, and plug it into his Wardenclyffe's transmitter, and he could send electricity anywhere, anytime, anywhere, however much juice. So you have a car, and Mr. J.P. Morgan paid for it. And once Tesla built in the 1891s a industrial sized, showing that it can be done, and this is what it is. Before Moron Boy, um, you know, uh, made the first. I invented the radio. I stole this stuff out of Tesla's laboratory and made this thing. I mean, Tesla had a remote controlled, radio controlled um, torpedo in the 1889s, right? And so, if he had a radio that he could control a boat, then he had a radio that could send Morse code, that's for sure, because the controls would go left, right, speed up, slow down, go underwater, go up. Those were like a little more complicated than the Morse code of Marconi. So, but what Marconi showed was that that spark gap could be heard around the world, and that was what Wardenclyffe did. Look up Wardenclyffe. And so J.P. Morgan said, "That's great, Nick, but we're going to tear it down." And that's why the National Laboratory at Brookhaven is right out there because Nick, built this big lab, and RCA was out there, and they just weren't doing Wardenclyffe. They were doing a lot of other stuff, right? And that's where the Montauk Project, Preston Nichols' book, Montauk Project, I knew those guys. I was part of the U.S. Psychotronic. I was one of those geeks, but I was a little more active. They stayed in their little closet and tinkered, and I tinkered too. But when we were put together by an entity that was an entity of another entity, which were all corporations that worked for DARPA or ARPA, you know, we were looking at things. It was straight out of um, Indiana Jones, and the first one, what's the Tomb Raiders now? Where he found the Ark of the Covenant, right? What is this? And he was sent out, and he found it, got it, gave it to the U.S. and they said, "Oh, that's nice." And he said, "Well, you told me I could play with it." I said, "Oh no, we got the highest, the people who really know." But you didn't even know what it was, so you came to talk to me. That was us, and I was the only one who didn't sign on. Meaning, all the rest of those guys, they wanted, you know, or at least they were told they would be given security, taken care of. They wouldn't have to worry about paying their bills. I knew that was a joke, but I didn't want to sign myself over to it, so I didn't. I stuck around as long as I could, and then at a certain point, I said, "Well, okay, see you, bye," and went on to something else. And that has always been my forte, is to be there at the beginning, be there at when it's the most fun, be there when the most whoa kind of shit happens, and then skedaddle before the shit hits the fan. So I've always done that. And the thing that has changed my motif was dying in 2014, and I, came back and, so it took me, to what's it now, 2014. So it's like almost 8 years it's taken me to get to homeostasis, meaning, look at what I have to put on my head to see. This is a version of Benjamin Franklin's glasses. There are a whole bunch of different lenses in there, so I can see some, like almost like a micro. This one I can see well. I can see you writing. I can see better than the stupid glasses, and this little thing I can like almost a microscope. And then there's two other lenses in there that let me see even closer. So um, until I figured out what to do with my eyeballs, but it's better than being blind, right? And so. So I got the deep green about 20 years ago, right? And I've been here a very comfortable 18 years. But the rich are coming in like the locust, and someone's going to buy me out, which is fine, and I'll move on. And I need that. Otherwise, if it stayed the way it was, I would have been comfortable. I would have just stayed here. I would have wrote my novels. No one would read them. I do a little of this, and then I'd die, right? But I still have a good 18 years left in me, and I'm ready to, I want to start the Traveling Video Art Circus. That's a cadre of people, very simple, the Circus Oz in Australia, Punch Hawks. She's a good example of this. Bread and Puppet. That's another great little circus. The Big Apple Circus. There are a whole bunch of little circuses that got up and running that I was part of, right? And got it, and they all had a social conscious part, some more than others. And my idea is to take the Traveling Video Art Circus, now that everyone has a smartphone, we'll make a really good web page, a really good YouTube channel, and we go to colleges and we offer our cultural montage because every college has a student activity fund. They grab $200 to $400 from each kid, they put it in a piggy bank, and that semester that's what pays parties and lectures and cultural stuff. We would be it. And towards the middle of every semester, they have a big chunk of change that they have to spend by the end of the semester, right? So, we offer them, we're going to come for a week. We will do classes. We will teach all kinds of stuff. And it will be very similar to what the teachings of the 50s and 60s were. That we really, we don't follow a ideological bent. We just impart understanding to the students and the community, not just the students, the community too. These would be community events that would get people to work together, because the only way this can be fixed is from the bottom up. And there are enough colleges out there and once you get kids excited and say, look, you're a freshman, you're a sophomore, you're a junior, and you're like, all you do is drink. This, how much fun are you having doing? This is great. You're changing the world. Yeah, and you're young. You want to live in a better world, and this can be your career. You can actually make some money at this, and you can, take what you're studying and plug it into this, and really start having some change. Because a lot of you look at Detroit. When Detroit fell apart in the 80s and 90s, this is what happened. There were a bunch of young people who came together, went to school, got to college, and brought in a new movement that put the workers and the artists and the entrepreneurs together, and were changing Detroit until there was about 20 of them, and they were, you know, unsurreptitiously assassinated over a 5-year period. And those 20 people were the linchpin of that thing in Detroit. So that was the weakness of Detroit, was that it depended on that linchpin. Now, the real deal is not to have that kind of linchpin, have everyone doing their thing. That was the beauty of Occupy. But because Occupy had so little structure, it couldn't be attacked, but it lent itself for the what is known as the Stalinist obstructionist. Like Comrade Zero would come in and take over the discussion and talk for hours and hours and hours of the dialectic, and people would get bored and walk away. So you have to have a grandmother's council that is there not just to masturbate, right? Is there to, because they're a valuable entity, their experience, and to be on the grandma's council, you don't have to be a woman, because there are enough men out there who are experienced enough up to a woman's level that realized, like when I was part of the Stop Showing campaign, there were 3 grandmas that had been lifting unbelievable, keeping Wilco at bay, keeping the Rockefellers at bay, keeping Mr. Rothschild. 3 old ladies, right? I went to a meeting, and there were all these, it was called the Shadow Alliance, all these anti-nuclear, and it was like a joke because everyone had their own little joke. Oh, we had to do this. No, we had to do this. And all I was there, I found out about Shoreham, and I live right next. It was only 10 miles away from it without realizing it was there. And so I went to this meeting, and I looked around, and the only people who I saw had the eyes of conviction were these 3 old ladies. So I said, "Hi, I'm Al. I just moved in the neighborhood, and I've done this, this, and this. And you're the important ones." And they said, "What do you mean, we're the old ladies?" I said, "No, aren't you Esther Pank?" And she goes, "How do you know me?" I said, "Well, I hear stories of how you're like the lioness that has kept Wilco at bay, and they wanted to build 20 nuclear power plants, and you kept it down to 1, just you. And then Mary Jo over here, and Catherine over here. You're the 3 musketeers. Well, I am here to sublimate myself at your feet. I am going to help us win this." And they go, "Really?" I said, "Yep." I said, "First off, we have to give it a really good name." And they go, "What's that?" And I said, "We have to name it what we're doing. So what do we want to do?" They're going, "Hmm." I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what we want to do. We want to stop the Shoreham power plant." Right? So that's what we call it. Stop Shoreham Now campaign, right? And we had different, derivations, but it was pretty much a Stop Shoreham power plant campaign, right? And so, and that's where I got the nickname Minister of Fun. I did whatever, because to do anything like that, it has to be fun. Can't be a drag. It can't be, "Oh, this stupid meeting. We're going to say the same thing over again, blah, blah, blah." No, you got to go out and do stuff. And you got to do it pretty much right away. You get an idea, you organize, you do it within a week or 2. And that's why nonviolence is the only way, because you can organize nonviolence pretty quickly, right? And you have a tight cadre, our original cadre for the first year and a half was just 10 people because it was easy to do. We all kind of lived with in the Nuck. We were all buddies. We all hung out. We all ate. We'd eat dinner, and we'd have a meeting, organizational structure, and everyone had their own little gift, to do, um, you know, their thing. There was a young lady who came from um, SUNY who was studying law, and she took Loco to court 18 times, went to Supreme Court 3 times and won. And she went to Supreme Court before she was 25 because she was smart and she had good backing behind her. Ralph came in and gave her a crew of lawyers and let's see, right? Wonder where she is now. But anyway, and I and other people did everything that was needed to keep her up there, right? And other people, we did what we needed to, and I would go off and do the things that no one was even thinking about that needed to be done strategically, and I went off and did them. Right, like I realized if we were gonna really, we had to get the police on our side, all the police, right? Not just Nassau and Suffolk, but the county and the state, and also police because Shoreham was only 6 miles to Connecticut over the Long Island Sound, so we had to get all the police in Connecticut and in Massachusetts. And if that plan ever blew up, the way the wind blew, it would have taken out everything from New Jersey up to Maine. Would have really dosed everyone, right? Cancer level up a zillion percent. It would have been a Chernobyl, but a lot worse because Chernobyl had lots of miles between it and other people. This, millions of people were within 6 to 10 miles of this plant, right? Chernobyl, millions of people were like, hundreds of miles away, right? So, or thousands, The largest population that got affected by Chernobyl was the EU. So anyway, here it is, the 21st of April, Earth Day, 50th anniversary. And, we are way worse off. And 72, I was at the UN, in our little alternative technology NGO. And I got to go to all these interesting conferences. And I went to one that was called Alternative 3, basically say Earth is toast, not just, for what environmentally humans are doing to it, but just for the earth changes that are coming. And by that time they had satellites up to look at other things. They had gone to Mars. Not well, they had gone to Mars, but not on the books, right? And they'd gone throughout the whole solar system, but not on the books. We had this thing called Solar Warden. I mean, we had, a breakaway civilization out in space since the early 40s, right? And that's what World War II was about, to rekindle the economy, build a military industrial complex, and, have it produce a tremendous amount of stuff in black programs that would basically allow people to do things, unlimited money, and no one would notice. Right? Cold War. Anyway, so and everyone was scared of A bombs, and we had way worse shit than that. We had Star Wars shit. Right? The moon is the Death Star. Really, it is. Go, David Icke, read his books. Joseph P. Farrell, read his books. And then there are tons of others. You know, um, go to. Um, there was a guy named Art Bell who started a thing called um, what's it called? Coast to Coast AM, right? And that 15 or 20 years he did it was amazing. And then George Norrie, a real sock puppet, a military sock puppet, took his place. But their website has a ton of information that if you're a good digger, you can go see what shows they had, what lectures they had, what people were there. They'll give you the names, the dates, and you can start going do your own homework. And that's what you got to do, your own homework. So, Again, it's almost 40 minutes here. So it's getting a little toasty in this car. So I'm going to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon. And come on, send some money to your Sensei Bob, please. And the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Dude awake 42 at Gmail. A little more thumbs up. A little, you know the drill. Come on. So I'm doing my part. I'm doing my best to kick out a show. It gives you stuff to think about. Tells you a little bit of what happened, and sees if you can go any further than that. Okay. So I'm gonna bail.